Okay. For folks attending, our co-panelist, he's trying to get into the Zoom right now. So we're just waiting 1 minute for that, and we'll get started. Hey, Luke.
Hey.
Awesome. That's looking good. Okay, let me see. I think this should be good. Okay. Is that sharing for everyone correctly?
Yeah.
Looking great. Looking great. Okay. Let's wait 1 more minute and then we can get started. And then let me just pull up also so that I have it ready. The actual instance so that we can quickly go into the demo as a part of this. I need to shut off a few other things on my system so it's not running so slow. All right. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's good time. Looks like we've got a decent amount of people trickled in. I'm gonna start things off and do a little bit of introductions between myself and Luke, and then we'll be able to just jump right into a walkthrough on, Data Studio, walkthrough on Spawn and Luke's background, and then hopefully leave some time at the end for Q&A. So thank you everyone for coming in and joining us and for this presentation. We're super excited to be able to walk through what we as a team have been working on and ways that some of our customers and design partners like Luke have been able to already start using this to to get insights into the state of his business in the way that he really has been able to only manage through Excel spreadsheets up to date. So super excited for this. We are trying to really figure out over the long run how we position this within, our portfolio of products. But, the simplest answer that I've kind of come up with so far is it's reporting at its core. It's embedded business intelligence right where your data lives. And at the end of the day, it's also a really easy managed, replacement for a lot of data warehousing and ETL that teams with, normally like large data engineering teams are running themselves. We found a really, really clever way and elegant way of rolling all that up. So super excited to share all that with you guys today. So Luke, super excited that you're able to join and call in for this and help kind of spearhead even a lot of the early design decisions for Data Studio. Can you give us a quick background on yourself and Spawn and kind of what you're up to today?
Yeah. Yeah. Also super excited, Wiley. It's been really fun getting in there and actually playing with this now that it's live. Yeah, I mean, hey everyone, by the way. Yeah, I'm Luke. I've been working in e-commerce and consumer and B2B technology for about 10 years now, kind of across the board from some traditional like big tech companies to some startups in the B2B space. And then, all the while have been working on a small direct to consumer e-commerce business that I started with a few high school buddies a long time ago. So it's been, yeah, fun journey that just keeps on accelerating and yeah, as mostly kind of my career's revolved around e-commerce and technology and just kind of like direct brand building. Uh,
Can you tell us a little bit more about Spawn specifically and like,
yeah,
I think you're are you from Oregon or are you from Washington? I know there's like a lot of fly fishing up there and how this all kind of came together.
yeah, a little of both. I was born in Washington, in Olympia, Washington, which is the capital, but still like relatively small town. Kind of spent most of my childhood just outside fishing and hunting, and doing a lot of things that dumb high school kids do with their friends and like backwoods and
Yep.
backcountry. And yeah, really just fell in love with the outdoors and kind of the products and experience that
Mm.
enable people to spend time outside. It's been a really pivotal part of my life, and I just think also like career and kind of spirit is just spending time outdoors and the challenges that that brings. And about 10 years ago, my family relocated to very rural Eastern Oregon. So we live in this place called Wallowa Valley. There's about 1,500 people in the whole county. So it's extremely rural, but it's some of the best fly fishing and hunting in the world. And so that sort of passion only accelerated after my family relocated out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think like the basic story is a very close friend of mine that I grew up with doing all these, backwoods things as kids. He was a professional soccer player, and then as his soccer career started to wind down, he started really getting into fishing, and his family had been very involved in fishing in Washington State for a long time. His name's Josh Phillips. He's the guy in the picture here. And yeah, he kind of came to me one day and was like, I have this idea for fly fishing products and
Hmm.
a brand, but don't really know how to sell anything online. And at the time, I
Mm.
was working at Amazon, uh, selling as a vendor manager outdoor equipment and goods. And so we put our heads together and we're like, let's try to start something. And that picture you see on the left is what it looked like. That was actually like our big move to the garage. It started in his bedroom in his parents' house. So we were like some 30-year-old guys hanging out in the bedroom that we had sleepovers. We were like five, and there were just all these boxes on the floor. And then we eventually moved to the garage, and we thought that was like the big boom of the business.
Yeah, yeah,
Little did we know.
that's awesome. Yeah, and now there's the flagship store, which is super cool. So, you know, I think the narrative here that's really interesting to me when we first met was that Spawn as a relatively small business has a lot of SKUs. And for you, it's actually, given your background, it even like 10,000 SKUs in the Spawn product catalog feels like a small amount of SKUs compared to what you were used to working with when you were at Amazon. And then when worked on a Trove, which is a re-commerce business, where every single item they touch is unique. And so SKUs is even like, to taken to its logical extreme. Walk me through how, kind of like some of the things that are interesting and unique about Spawn as a business as a consequence of how large your product catalog is.
Yeah, it's I think the right question to ask. I mean, this is like I threw these sort of three questions up here on this slide. Not that I have the answers to these at all. These are the questions that I find myself asking myself a lot. And coming from Amazon technology and e-commerce, it was built around a billion SKU catalog. I When I got into a really small startup business, I just realized like there's this massive gap around the ability for the software and processes to handle just tons and tons of not data, but specifically like product data and catalogs,
Mm.
how those are really the backbone of everything that a small business does on the technology side, on the front end, like shopping experience, all of it. And I guess I've been struggling with this and working on this for I don't know, like 8 years now. Is like how do you bring this really like big company, big tech data excellence into the world of a small business? And it's something we've found incredibly challenging. Um, I think one thing that we observed early on is like a lot of the technology out there, Shopify or apps on the Shopify platform or different B2B SaaS, like if you look at their marketing and advertising, they really target it's like a furniture company with 6 SKUs or a candle company that makes
Mm.
products because it looks really clean and sexy in the front end experience and the apps work really well and the data looks really good. But the truth is there's a lot of businesses out there that have these massive catalogs and sell tens of thousands of items because they are a retailer in addition to a brand. And these
Yeah.
apps and services just like didn't really work with that level of catalog size.
Yeah. So, something we talked about a lot when we were thinking about the problems that Spawn had and what that translated into in a missing set of features that kind of broadly the market needed was this idea that we would take this kind of real world model of the problems that the company actually has, and then converting that into the data model, right? And that's kind of like the thing we talked a lot about is like if we take this very tangible real world set of questions of like we went and placed a bunch of orders for a bunch of hooks. These hooks are distinct from those other hooks that we buy from this other vendor. Like, where are those physically? What's been paid for? Like, which customers received what things? What's in our warehouse? You guys manage your own warehouse. So that's another thing, which is like, managing like bins and lot codes and stuff for 10,000 SKUs in your own warehouse is something that's not for the faint of heart. And so when we talked about that, then converting that into a physical, that physical real world model into a data model, it kind of became clear to us that it's like the biggest problem that a lot of these tools that actually have is that they don't let you take your understanding of your business and construct it into the product and platform. Instead, they give you a representation, which is, well, this is what kits are. This is what SKUs are. This is what a purchase order is. And every business is so unique at that, kind of at its boundary conditions that this, data model that you get out of the box from, like you said, from these SaaS platforms, it doesn't actually meet the real world, when the rubber meets the road. So can you kind of walk me through like some of the conversations we had here, which I found this was so fascinating was when we were working on this together. What came up for you when we kind of figured out like all the reporting aspects really result in a BI tool, and maybe something, especially we talked about this a lot where you saw this with Trove. Would love to hear a little bit more on that before we jump into some specifics on the product.
Yeah, I think the macro, like the deeper realization for me and the perspective that I've had to carry forward is just to your point, Wiley, like every business, especially small businesses, especially if you're kind of like vertically integrated or you run your own warehouse, there's nothing neat about it. It's all really messy. And you have these large catalogs and you have SKUs that don't match and just all these like really obvious real world problems. And they seem inconsequential to some degree because you can just kind of manually handle them as, like you have two SKUs that don't match, but what those two SKUs are. And so when an order comes in for those, you're able to just go pick them and you can handle that. And that seems fine and dandy when you're in the warehouse fulfilling orders. But where it starts to break down is actually understanding the health of your business. And
Mm,
you start losing this ability to get really fine-tuned with what is
yeah,
profitable and what isn't profitable and what changes do I need to make. And for us, how that's been really important is basically, we're a 3-person company. We have warehouse employees, but there's sort of 3 like, traditional corporate or headquarter employees. And what that means is that we each need to be able to do like 10 people's jobs. And the
yeah,
only way to do that is with comprehensive reporting. And what we found as we started growing and leaning into this space more is that there are reporting tools out there, but they're typically very disjointed. You have to go into
mm,
one tool to understand your sales, and another tool to understand your advertising, another tool to understand your inventory.
yeah,
And each of those tools may be fine on their own, but until you bring them together in a single place, it doesn't work if you are doing 4 people's jobs. If it's 4
yeah,
people, each go, they are like, oh yeah, I just use this tool. But if you're doing all 4 of those and toggling between all these different things, the data never ends up speaking to the other tools. And ultimately, we had no idea what was going on with their business. Like we knew that sales would go up or sales would go down, but I didn't
right,
understand what was driving that. And
yeah,
I was, I came from this world where you're able to bridge every basis point of change in every metric down 6 layers deep, and you're expected to do
yeah,
that in your brain.
right, right,
I found that to just be basically like a rocket ship for business. Like that level of measurement
mm,
unlocked unbelievably high probability decision making, which
mm,
allowed small groups of people to run huge businesses. They're supported by the entire backend infrastructure of Amazon. So I really have been trying to find a way to implement that and bring that same sort of concept to Spawn.
yeah.
Uh,
That's awesome. So, that was one of the things that jumped out at me when we were initially designing the ideas around what now is DataStudio was that we had these common questions that would be posed to us over and over again. And it was just around how you report in some verticalized tool, like you're saying. It's like, I want to report on sales, I want to report on inventory, I want to report on core financials or demand or whatever it is. And um, the interplay between those was almost impossible for all of our customers to manage without exporting and re-importing from one system into another system. And someone put it really well to me. He was like, I do more data logistics than I do actual logistics. And like, he's like, and I run a logistics team. I was like, okay, like I was like, that has stuck with me since then. And so, we kind of figured out, we're like, all right, like if we just back this all out into its abstract form, it turns out it's just a lot of pivot tables and queries and joins and filtering and grouping and aggregating and segmenting and visualizing. And so we went and built that. And so, jumping into kind of the pieces on this, we started with this end vision. These are a lot of Luke's sketches here when we were working together on this, and putting together, how do we bring together data all into one place into what we call an integrated data platform? How do we build applications on top of it? And then how do we visualize on top of the app layer? And so, we're super happy to be rolling this out. DataStudio is, something that is pretty much accessible to all of our customers today. We can start, it's actually self-service as well. You can just still go in, start dropping in charts and workspaces, putting together all different forms of visualizations from metrics, all the cool gauge plots and pie charts and things like that. And what's really awesome about it is that it's really, really fast, because unlike a lot of traditional tools, it actually is not separated from the visualization layer from where your actual data is. I don't want to name specifics, but there's a very big BI company that starts with an L and ends with Ooker, and it's very slow because your data does not sit where the actual visualization is. And that was like one of the biggest things that we focused on when building this, is that it had to be insanely fast. So
I can actually just you asked a little bit about my experiences at Trove, which was a technology company that ran and built applications for large brands. And this is where this issue really codified for me, is just like the separation between the actual application layer and where the data is stored, and that latency. When you're loading an individual report and you look at, okay, it takes 10 seconds to load or a minute to load, it doesn't seem that painful. And I look at this once a week. So, what's it to me if it loads on Sunday night or something?
right.
As the business scaled, I think I would say one of the legitimately top three sort of existential problems for a scaling business there is not the reporting and dashboards you have. It is unlocking every individual employee's ability to be their own sort of data experts, spelunking through the data and unlocking and discovering all these things. We found this at Trove. It was incredibly challenging. And when you have a high degree of latency in your data, just raw data, I'm not even talking about pie charts or graphs, just the raw data that you can look into, that latency breaks down the entire chain of unlocking individual people to go do their own data spelunking, because you have to click and iterate. And I think there's a founding philosophy that I really sort of started to feel while I was at Trove, which was that no amount of pre-built canned reporting, even if built by your own data analytics team, will replace the speed and discovery that an individual spelunking through data can have when developing technology or new products or whatever it is. So I think that just for me became a philosophical thing, that at any small company, building that capability is your superpower in outpacing your competitors, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah. The ability for us to close the loop as quickly as possible between what you can see on the screen and the consolidated aggregate of what your raw data is like our word for it we've come up with is the spelunkability of the system. Is if it's very spelunkable, then you're in a really good spot. So with that, we'll start diving actually into the platform on a quick walkthrough of some of the actual data inside of Spawn. So yeah, and thanks Luke for letting us share some of this and being a great partner on that. One quick note on this, one fun thing is the kind of the secret sauce behind a lot of this is actually just best in class open source tools. We're really not, you know, layering too much technology in. It's very minimal. It's basically just the world's best SQL database and the world's best like aggregate search database, Elastic. And we just move data back and forth between the two, and we keep them in sync with one another so that anytime you're using our integrated data platform to query data, it's either getting it deterministically in a really, really fast way, or we're able to go and search and kind of do this needle in a haystack type of aggregation, and it's all running on Google Cloud. And so with that, I will jump in a couple screenshots, some fun stuff from some different charts underneath Spawn. We can see here our wonderfully Microsoft Excel-ish color palette, donut charts and all kinds of fun stuff. And so I will from here, let me just jump in and we can just go straight into sharing the actual workspace. Let's see. This is the right one. One moment. There we go. All right. Can everyone see this? Okay. You guys can see this? Cool. Thumbs up.
That looks good.
Awesome. So high level, just walking through this, just kind of over here, for folks who aren't familiar with DOS, haven't seen DOS, it's, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. On the left side here, we have a bunch of data objects. You can think of it like a file system. And, now we have the ability to add, as we always have, tables and forms, but now there's this new concept of dashboards. And dashboards, as you can see in this URL, they're just workspaces. So it's really easy even to like share these with your team. You can just send links back and forth, and the underlying charts inside of these, if we click into one, you can see we're able to pull up pretty much right away. So, Luke, just kind of looking at this, walk us through at a high level of like some of the concepts inside of your, Spawn that are interesting for you guys as you're thinking about like very simple sales reporting, invoicing, working with your customers. Like, what are the kinds of things that you're wanting to see if we look at something like open invoices? Or actually, one of my favorite charts was like the weekly sales one, because I know that's obviously a very common thing for e-commerce brands to be looking at by channel. Can you give us a walkthrough of kind of how you think about like, what you're looking for in data like this, and ways that you would be interested in seeing it expanded over time?
Yeah, I mean, my view is that there's kind of just like 5 basic pieces of data or areas of data that you need to be able to visualize. How we think about it at Spawn is we like to keep the high level reporting very simple around those kind of 5 data points. I can go into those, and then unlock a ton of raw data, which is actually one of the features that I like most about DataStudio, is that in any of these dashboards and data visualizations, you can toggle over to see the actual tables incredibly easily. And so that allows this really healthy shift between, okay, here's what it looks like, and then here's the raw data underneath. And a lot of data tools that I've seen out there, it's just like, even Shopify, and I think Shopify is an amazing tool. They like inundate you with just like all these different cuts and views and all these things. And it's so overwhelming. And my philosophy is that there's just like 5 key things, and then you want raw data. The 5 key things that we track are, we need to look at top line, right? So what are our sales cut over time, either to daily grain or weekly grain? Yes, we want to look at them by channel, and we want to look at them by product. I want to understand my inventory over time. What is it? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What the health of the inventory? You can get into all these different like aged inventory and sell through. I really just want to know, is it going up or is it going down?
Yeah.
I want to understand our open purchase orders. So this is sort of like accounts payable, right? How much am I going to have to be paying our key vendors in the near future? Our open invoices. So these are what we consider like non-automated sales, right? Automated sales come through our e-commerce platforms like Shopify. It's high volume of orders, but we also have a wholesale business, and we need to be able to track that and understand like, here's an open invoice, send it to the customer, but also track, hey, here's something open, what's the amount? And then the 5th is traffic, right? So that's the big one, is e-commerce data around how many customers are coming to my site. And I think that's
Yep.
probably the next big opportunity to expand reporting into here. But once we have all
Yep.
5 of those, it's a comprehensive suite for us, really. And we find ourselves not leaving the data platform, aside from once a year when we go and file our taxes and need to look at, that kind of inflow, outflow financial data.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Something we talked about a long time ago that I thought was really cool was when you thought about like weekly sales, and you thought about things like stocking out, especially around like a product catalog that's so large, you're looking at traffic as an input to this kind of downstream, ultimately like top line weekly sale number. Um, Given kind of where DataStudio is at today, we have the ability to put together quite a lot of visualization on top of like single points of data. In this case, like we're looking at orders. One of the things that you and I have, really gone into detail on is like the ability to take third-party data, like let's say from like Google Analytics, like GA4 or Triple Whale, or even directly from Shopify, and being able to overlay it directly on top of weekly sales data. Um, you know, we've kind of put the skeleton of that in place already here. What are the things that you'd be thinking about, like immediately looking at if you had access to that and you could pull that into something like the DataStudio?
Yeah, the truth is it's really just one metric. It's just sales traffic, sessions or
Sessions.
views or page views or however you want to talk about it, some measurement of
Yep.
traffic.
Yep.
Again, these platforms offer like, yeah, I'm sure people on this call have looked at Google Analytics before, or, Google advertising platforms. It's like 10 trillion different data points and like customer segments. There are inputs and there are outputs, and the inputs are really traffic
Hmm.
times your conversion rate equals your number of orders times your AOV or your ASP equals your sales or revenue. And that's
Yep.
really how we think about it. And so when we, like here, there's a sales report. We honestly don't really look at sales reports that often because for us, it's just an output and we're focused on the input.
Mm-hmm.
And so all that a sales report does for us is it's a signal, right? It's a signal that you need to deep dive into something. And then we do
Yep.
deep raw data. And yeah, so the only additional thing you actually need to bring in here is traffic data. And once you have traffic data, we can calculate conversion rate based on that. And the DOS
Yeah.
system could its own.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's really just the last like layer that we would want to add.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there was one thing too, which was the ability to be able to actually go back and close the loop on source data. I thought was so interesting when we, conceptualized a lot of that, which is that in this case, we're looking at a y-axis, which is just like GMV, right? And we can look at this and say very simple things here, which is like, we're looking at the sum of like GMV, but we could also go and look at like order volume averages, right? And very clearly, we can see something happen where it's like, okay, the Shopify orders drop way down because they're much, much smaller transactions versus like, obviously, your wholesale transactions are much larger. Um, I think that's one thing that I thought was so exciting about being able to pull in third-party data and cross-section it at the point in which it enters our system and not just at the visualization layer, so that we're not stuck in a position where you can't easily disambiguate from like what channels things are coming from. That's something that I hear a lot about from from our customers is they're like, oh, we would actually have to have our engineering team go, or like our maybe the person who manages our data go and restructure how the script pulls all this data out because I can't even visualize it in Looker. Like we don't even have access to the right stuff to be able to go and make those changes. This is something, especially now that you've gone from like being at Amazon to then being at Trove to now, running all this for Spawn. How do you think about this and kind of the idea of like a managed data engineering service, where you're now a 3-person team versus a scaled up venture backed company that has 20 or 30 software engineers? What comes to mind for you in kind of these situations?
I think my learning is just that uh, data engineering, maybe not the actual technical aspects of data engineering, but data engineering as a team or an organizational function is
Mm,
way, way harder or more rare than it seems.
mm,
So there is just no conceivable way that a small, like a truly small, and Spawn is a pretty small company. Like we've done well and we've grown, but we're we don't have millions and millions of dollars of monthly cash flow to be spending on, software
Right.
engineers or the team members. Um, there's no conceivable way in which we would actually have a data engineering team.
Right.
And what shocked me the most was at Trove, which was a very well-staffed software company with engineers and data architects and analysts.
Yep.
In their data engineering was exceptionally difficult to construct in a way that is performant.
Yeah.
And so my learning is, unless you have a couple $1 billion of free cash flow and you actually have like a multi-thousand person data engineering team that is able to maintain, independent microservices for every piece of data being generated,
Yep.
you're just not going to unlock the
Mm,
type of data you need to make these automated, really,
mm,
lean, scalable business decisions.
yeah.
And yeah, I just like, I think that if you are able to bridge that gap, the it's honestly really inspiring for me. Like, I think that the bridging the gap between, Amazon, Google, Meta style data engineering and a
Mm,
small business that just wants to focus on making the product and not being a data engineer, I think
yep.
you'll see a world of just thousands and thousands of small companies becoming not so small and being able to maintain very small teams and run huge businesses and not
Yeah.
spend their days like banging heads against the wall. I would bet on data engineering as a service or a product. I would bet on its ability to supercharge any small business or medium-sized business over literally any other piece of software you could buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That
like at the
that's
core.
man, that's something I think I've thought about a lot as a part of us, working on Data Studio, but also anytime we talk to customers, making sure we're really stress testing that that's true or not. And some of the most interesting things to me was that, or at least what we had initially underestimated was the appetite for something like Data Studio, even at companies that have engineering headcount. People who have technical organizations inside of their business. And the thing that I has shocked me is that how hard it is to convince some of these technical organizations to lend a hand to the end business users or operations teams. And there's always a fight for headcount and a fight for resources and sprints and things like that. But I think what excites me deeply about what Data Studio is able to do is that it doesn't put the kind of the bottleneck anymore on the engineering team to get, oh, pull this report for me, pull this query for me, someone do this for me. Instead, it puts a lot more power back in the end business user's hands. And as a result, like you get this kind of double-sided benefit. Engineering teams are spending less time doing that spelunking for end business users, and the end business users, the floor on their capability has been expanded dramatically. You don't need to know how to write SQL in order to like pull reasonable levels of reporting. You don't have to connect directly to the database. You can just pull it directly through something like DOS. So that was one of those things that was definitely a surprise to me, but I was just pretty blown away by. Just so I've
Yeah.
been so excited to see.
I don't know. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. One observation I've had is just, if you're a small or medium-sized business, let's say you're not a technology company, right? You're a brand, you make fly fishing gear, you make, clothes or whatever it is.
Right.
Uh, and you have an idea for some consumer facing app
Yep.
or, web experience that you think
Yep.
is really going to be meaningful to your customers. There's a totally conceivable way that you'll go out and develop that, right? Maybe you hire a software engineer, you go
Yep.
contract it out. There are just like tons of mechanisms by which, okay, one-time project, go build this sweet app. Here's our brand studio, so you can design it in the look and feel of our brand. And then you
Yep.
have this killer experience. And this is kind of the model by which most companies have actually built their e-commerce experiences before things like Shopify existed. Data engineering is not a one-time thing. It's a constant maintenance. And a data engineer is the job is never done for a data engineer because it's not
Yep.
just a single app or experience they're building. And as a result, very few non-engineering companies are ever going to hire a data engineer, because it's just like, oh, I'm just
Right.
adding, a couple $100,000 to my payroll annually, and it's never going to end. And they're they don't know exactly what they're going to do with all of the excellent data until they really are in there doing things. And it's just too large of an expense and a commitment to make for them to build out that function internally. And, it's
Yeah.
fun. Even it's fun. I'm someone, and the rest of the Spawn team has total conviction in how much value it would bring to us. And we've never hired a data engineer, and we never will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even while you were just describing that, you're playing around with an example of something like this, which is the thing that I'm sure you and Josh are routinely calibrating on and thinking about is like order volume, order size, average orders. It's so easy, even just kind of like if you guys have been watching while I've been clicking around in the background, these are things that normally like you would literally be writing to your data team or your data scientist or your data analyst, or even if it's like a biz ops person or someone, let's say someone in sales who just knows how to use SQL, or someone who knows how to someone who just knows where the spreadsheet is, even that simple. They're like, what's the latest thing on this? And why is this metric what it is? It's really easy for us to go in and even just do simple stuff where we can even just see that I've been going in and actually even changing the visualization. This is a thing that I saw a million times over in past companies, and we hear from people all the time is you see like a thing that you'll see at some old dashboard, and you'll see like they'll say do not use or something, right? And they'll put it in the top. You're like, it's old, it's our, it's invalid and whatever it is. In this situation, it's really easy for us to identify, what's actually being changed in this. So someone could go in and be like, oh, someone actually made this a sum instead of their counting, and it's no longer the gross units and like the number of units. Actually, it's actually like they're counting the order value, right? Those are things you'd literally be like pinging someone about in the past, versus now it's just like, well, I'll just go do it myself. And you're again back to that point you made. Now one person can do what maybe was a handful of people's jobs, and we're just expanding raising the floor and the ceiling at the same time. So yeah, it's been really exciting to kind of see this play out, and how you guys are thinking about it. So two other quick questions, kind of on here. What's on your wish list for stuff inside of something like DataStudio, personally? Like, what are it's early days for this. This is kind of the first release of it. We're doing things like you can do drag and drop and move the dashboards around. We can do, you can see it re-rendered there. So it's like you can easily move things around and go and refresh the data. Build a bunch of charts and visualizations, drop your tables in, things like that. But it's super early. What's the stuff that you want to see in here that we haven't been able to build yet?
I mean, again, I'm sure this will not be true for every brand out there or customer for you, Wiley.
Yeah.
My philosophy is simplicity and performance is better for businesses, especially businesses who are not in like the data or technology space. So
Yep.
the truth is I don't have this like long wish list of things for any data platform, or even for an ERP. Like, this is part of Spawn's philosophy. It's just like, what is the minimum amount of complexity we need to operate more efficiently? And so, yeah, I mean, you could make this exhaustive list of all these things that you could build with data into the product. And my philosophy is that you really just don't need that much as long as you have access to raw data and it's performant. So that's like high level. Nitty gritty specifics. Yeah, for us, the two big things are bring in traffic data, right? So be able to connect to Google Analytics or directly to Shopify or some e-commerce platform.
Right.
Advertising and marketing, which is somewhat related to that, right? Like, you get ad reporting in Google Analytics, you get it in Shopify now. The truth is nobody trusts any of these numbers because they're all using some attribution model, and you just don't know. You're like, one says the ROI of this ad is 1000x and the other thing says it's 2x. So what is it? So bringing it into like a trusted source that's objective and doesn't have any like, incentive to increase the
Right. Right.
I think that's really important to us. So yeah, traffic and advertising. And then the
Yeah.
big one is inventory over time,
Mm,
which like understandably is creates a lot of data because you're sort of
yeah.
downloading and storing inventory every day or hour or minute or month or whatever grain you want.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
very few platforms. I mean, Shopify does not show you inventory over time. Most of the
Hmm.
apps that sit on top of Shopify don't show you inventory over time.
Yep.
Uh, and that, yeah, that one is really valuable to us. I can tell you there's like a one key metric that if I could pick one metric to bring into a data platform that I've never seen outside of Amazon, it would be this metric. And that's the notion of percentage of traffic in which a specific SKU is out of stock.
Oh, basically like an opportunity cost metric or like a missed opportunity
Yeah.
metric.
Yeah. And Amazon uses this metric like, it's one of the foundational metrics of how they evaluate their retail business because it's
Uh,
really important. It says, okay, yes, you have out of stock products, but did anyone actually want to buy those? And,
mm,
and the amount of traffic when a product is out of stock. And then you can calculate the conversion rate of that product and the ASP, and that gives you an actual dollar figure for being out of stock in that product.
right.
It makes your inventory management and buying so damn efficient. And I've never seen
Wow.
a metric anywhere outside. And I know it's hard. You have to be
Hmm.
pairing traffic data with real-time inventory data.
Yeah.
Um,
And you have to be able to update and calculate your conversion. So you're looking at traffic over time, looking into actually what goes and converts on the sale, and then matching that up with the inventory. And if you have different geos, like then you should split that out. So yeah, that could get really, really hard.
it can get hard, but I think it's like probably one of the most value add. So we've actually tried to build things internally to calculate
Mm,
this, and it's tough. The data engineering infrastructure to do it is actually just really challenging.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Kind of to your point, like, what you just talked about is so interesting because that was our like I think the most core realization in all of building Data Studio is that if you have the core information architecture to be able to say, well, we have these tables in here, and here's 600 pieces of data that we've loaded in, right? When we were going and setting this up as like kind of a demo instance for you guys, and we go and build a dashboard that's sitting on top of sales data, and then we also have a workflow that will go in and let's just say it's actually going and just checking Shopify values. And it's going to go in and pull in Shopify orders. When a new order is updated and received, it's going to go look for the order. It'll either update the status or go in and insert in here. This workflow here, this table, and the visualization, that is all that's required for us to report comprehensively on your Shopify orders.
yeah.
Three like very simple atomic things. For us to be able to do the exact same thing with your traffic and attribution, it would be creating a new table in DOS, going in and making sure that the fields and properties that you're capturing from GA4 are being streamed in as a part of a workflow, and then building a new visualization that's able to join and overlay those two things. And so like the only piece that's missing right now is that we just need to go set up the workflows.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, not to geek out on this, but as we're talking about it now, I I think there's a way to do this with workflows right now.
yeah.
I don't want to like spike your AWS or your Google Cloud bill by 10x or something by building it. But I think there's ways to do it. And so
No, well, that's
that's
also one of the
what has been exciting about all of this is bringing the data, the operational data and the top line and input output data into one place with the ability to build data visualization and automation on top of it. It's just like a playground for us. I think that's how mostly
yeah.
how we look at it.
Yeah, that's why we called it Data Studio. That was like we were like, what's a good name for this? We're like, it doesn't need to be clever. It's like it's just this is all
Yep.
it is. It's just a place to just go play around with your data. So it was awesome.
Other things
Luke.
are we need to format the dates. I can't stand
Mm.
the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is one of those things where when we think about like the stack rank of us making this usable, there's this infinitely long list of like um formatting stuff that you have to think through, like even simple things where it's like, okay, 587.00. Yeah, that's dumb. We should be able to make it so it's really easy to go in and reformat every single aspect of what you see inside of here, right? Even down to like picking the color palette. And you can see here because in this case, your timestamps that are coming in from your Shopify orders, they're actually down to the like second. They use like UTC encoded timestamps. And so we can see this here. Well, it's rounding it off because it's grouping them by week. So we probably shouldn't see that big long 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, right? So there's a lot of stuff for us to go in and do to make Data Studio even more amazing. But we really, really appreciate all the support and effort that you've been putting in to help make this an amazing product. So and then also I wanted to give a huge shout out to the engineering team that worked on this. I think I put it on one of our previous slides. We have a few team members who probably 3 people on our team who are responsible for building this. And I think we went from the initial design doc to today in about a month and a half. So it was an insanely fast project, which is just a kudos to the DOS engineering team for being so cracked. So huge shout out to them. I want to make sure that they're this is cemented in posterity for them for being so awesome. So with that, Luke, thank you for joining in for this and helping support us along the way. I wanted to open up for questions. Anything that we can look into. Let me see if I can navigate back to the part of Zoom where I can actually see questions. Feel free to drop stuff in the chat if or I don't know if people can raise their hand or something. I have no idea. So if anyone has questions, feel free to send a message in and we'll take a stab at them. How do I see questions? Or if someone can tell me there are questions. Or if there are no questions. Oh, it looks like also someone messaged me on our engineering team. They said that it was really cool. There was actually an order that came in real time, and we saw it on the feed. I don't know. Did you guys see that? I think I saw it also when that happened. There was, if we went, I think it was when we were looking at our orders. If you go into here, the table that's in here, you saw that kind of like black thing flashing across. That is actually when you see that, that's meaning that the table is updating and re-rendering. And it was because at some point Spawn got an order on Shopify during this demo, which is it's cool to see. Like we don't have to refresh anything. I'm not refreshing my browser. It just gets published in. We have a big PubSub subscription model where all data that touches kind of our underlying integrated data platform gets pushed back to what's inside of your browser, basically in real time. So that was whoever pointed that out. That was funny. Any questions? And I don't know how to see if there's questions. Let me see if I can figure out this Q&A. Oh, okay. No open questions. Well, can someone Slack me and confirm that there are no questions before we jump off? Oh, it looks like there are questions. It says chat is disabled. Okay. Let me just see how we can do this. There's a way for us to disable annotation for others. Oh yeah, okay. So it is enabled, it seems like. So Simon asked a test question. Yeah, so a couple other things that are interesting on top of this is, some things that we want to work on right now. Things that are planned for actually going in other implementation. One thing is that if you look currently, we actually have fixed y-axes. It's kind of like x-axis, y-axis. If you've used other BI tools, you know that obviously you want to layer in multiple pieces of information, and you want to also do operations on aggregated values. So today, in what's in this current like kind of right side configuration, we can't go and filter down based on the aggregates. We can't sort based on the aggregates, group by, or all the different things that you're used to doing in SQL. We can't do that on the aggregated values. That's not a fundamental limitation. It's just truly like, you just haven't included that in the feature set yet. There's a whole round of kind of like, this, if you think of this as Data Studio's v1, there's a whole round of what we'll come out with as like a 1.1 very soon, which is the ability to add, the sorting and structuring on outputs, being able to pull in and kind of think of, oh, look at that, another order just came in. Let's see what happened. We populated down. It might not be an order coming in. Oh, no, it was 578. There you go. So funny. Um, so anyway, the thing that's so interesting about this is that, we have kind of the foundations and skeleton in here to be able to add more functionality like that. We just have not put it in yet. So if you look at like this chart as an example, you would maybe, let's say, want to overlay the average volume as opposed to just the count. Right now we can only show one. We go into, the max, all these things, the sum. Right now, these are fixed formulas, fixed operators. Because we have an underlying formula editor, we can go in and actually add custom formulas. We'll be able to add thresholds and trends, and be able to have projections where you can take, if you look at your x-axis here, we will actually, if it's a date, we'll be able to make it so you can project out some number of some increments and then apply a formula for a trend line. All that stuff is really easy for us to add on top of this foundation. And those are things that are, back to kind of like Luke's original points, is like, if you want to be able to do stuff like you're, trying to estimate the conversion of something, well, you need to be able to run that through maybe a formula that you write by hand as opposed to, these distinct, very simplified operators. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to be layering into DataStudio very soon. Over the longer term, what we're going to be able to actually also do is, if you look in here, right now, the data that's the data source here is orders. There will be another side panel on this left side, which is actually just going to be a complete, natural query language directly on top of SQL. And so, whether you want to write SQL or not, up to you. But there will be the option for you to actually go in and query on top of your DOS data exactly as if it were a SQL database. And we do all the translation layer for our customers, and so then they don't have to think about, whether or not the DOS table truly is a SQL table under the hood. They just get, they get query level performance that they would expect out of a high performing database. So those are the kinds of things that we're super excited about in the near term.
Yeah, I just want to also add, Wiley, like, just, yeah, shout out to the DOS team, all of you guys on the product design side and the actual engineering. Spawn is just starting to use this. It really is the biggest leap forward for us that we have seen in getting close to that model of being able to like run our business the way that an Amazon or Target or Walmart run their business. That level of excellence, but at the small business scale. And yeah, so it's not a hyperbole for me, and I'm not just like fanboying here. It really is like transformative for us in our ability to continue to grow as a lean company. So just starting to use it, but yeah, it's exciting, and it feels genuinely like a step forward for us that we haven't been able to unlock in years.
That's awesome. Love to hear that. With that, we'll wrap up. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll send out notes and stuff like this for folks who participated. And, if you have any questions, feel free to send us a note after. We'll send out links to the recordings, YouTube links, things like that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Luke. Thanks to the team for, coordinating all this and building such an awesome product. We'll see you guys next time. We're going to have another webinar in a few weeks, but this was awesome. Thank you for everyone for joining in.
Yeah, thanks, Wiley. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Bye.